Hello, hello, this is Fear Dragon coming at you with another StarCraft 2 netcast. Today we have a Protoss vs Zerg on Entombed Valley from IEM Singapore, round of 16, so let's go ahead and jump in and introduce these players. Spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of Entombed Valley as the blue Protoss player is representing Team Mouse Esports. It is going to be Mouse Esports MouzHasuObs, and MouzHasuObs is one of those really awesome Protoss players who has been doing pretty well for a foreigner and has a really interesting style where he does actually like to go for Templar tech sometimes before a lot of heavy robotics tech in terms of Colossus and everything, even in Protoss vs Zerg. So we're going to wait and see if he actually goes for something like that in this game, because his opponent is going to be spawning up here in the top right hand corner as the red Zerg, and his name is LiquidZenio, representing Team Liquid, of course, and he's one of the Korean players for Team Liquid. However, I do have to say, in comparison to his two teammates, Hero as well as Teja, he has not been quite living up to those same degree of names in terms of fame. So we're going to wait and see, is IEM Singapore going to be his stage to actually claim a first place title, or is it going to be another location where he just does relatively well for a Korean, but just not quite well enough? I really would like to see him do well in this tournament. And yeah, we're going to jump into it. So then we actually see a spawning pool going down for LiquidZenio, looking like a very standard build, and of course MouzHasuObs setting up that pylon to go for that Forge Vest expand over here. And you know, this pylon doesn't quite indicate exactly how this wall off is going to go. Now, a Protoss player can actually wall off in two different locations on this little ramp over here. They can actually wall off directly on the ramp, which is a pretty wide ramp to actually try and wall off at, or the alternative is they could actually create a wall in this direction. Now, the disadvantage of walling in this direction is that, well, you know, if there is any attempt to take a third, you're actually creating a wall in to defend your third. So it looks like MouzHasuObs not going to go for that wall. I'm going to go for the more easier to transition out of, I should say, wall in at the ramp. And I kind of like that decision. I like it when those Protoss players decide to actually go for a 3-base play, as there are some strong 2-base pushes in Immortal Sentry. But I think there is some also really strong late game options for a Protoss player. We have actually been seeing some of those really awesome transitions. We've even been seeing carriers being utilized in this matchup lately, and it's really cool to see, actually. So we'll have to wait and see, as the late game is quite a bit of a ways off, and in the meanwhile we're going to wait and see when exactly the gas geysers are going to be taken, as gas geysers so symbolic of what kind of potential builds a player could be going for. But in the meanwhile, we do end up seeing Forge, then second pylon, and then a gateway, and then cannon. So, I mean, it looks like MouzHasuObs is playing as greedy as possible with that opening, and is going to barely be able to get up the little wall in with the gateway. He's probably going to cancel that and start a cybernetic score as soon as this gateway is done extension. And there we end up seeing those two buildings canceled. Not a huge loss, but then again, a nice little win for Zenio. Even forcing out those small little things early on does do it's a little bit of damage. In the meanwhile, Zenio going to go for that kind of late-ish hatchery. Is a little bit later than he probably could have gotten it, but it looks like he just wanted to make sure that everything was safe and secure. He wanted to have those Zerglings out on the map so he could scout around for the pesky probe, which is actually going to be intercepting this Zergling, maybe. No, it doesn't look like the Zergling sees the probe. So, I mean, a nice little sling by, and MouzHasuObs should actually be able to move this in over to the third base, and he should be able to see that the third base has been taken. That's going to actually be a sigh of relief for him, as he's going to go ahead and send that probe home. Not sure if it's actually going to get home, as it's going to actually be intercepted by yet another Zergling. No other Zergling, a little bit late to the party, kind of does a double take and says, oh, whoa, wait this second, there is a probe over there, and I should probably chase that. So, in the meanwhile, MouzHasuObs is going to be sending out the, I kind of like this play, is sending out that Zealot to defend the probe, and I mean, nice reaction time by Zenio, not going to be losing either of those Zerglings, and could actually get out a couple additional Zerglings sometime. Yeah, it looks like he has 4 in the production tab, so he could actually go ahead and try and take out that Zealot before it's really able to do a whole lot, but it looks like the Stalker also popping out. MouzHasuObs might be looking to put on a little bit of pressure, but no, actually just going to be going for an incredibly fast third. Now, this is something that we have seen some Protoss players attempt to do, but oftentimes, I mean, is just not, it's a play that you make when you want to try and get ahead, but at a huge risk, as we see a 6-minute 50-second Nexus going down that is not exactly what you would consider a safe Nexus. But if you can get away with it, you're going to be in such a fantastic position moving into the late game. I mean, if you look at it, it's only really a minute or two behind, or maybe like 2.5 minutes behind his opponent's third hatchery. And I mean, Zerg does want to be up that one base, at least at this point in the game. In the meanwhile, we'll see an Evolution Chamber and a Roach Warren coming out of Zenio. So it looks like with these two gas geysers over here, it's kind of indicating that he's just preparing for any kind of pushes that the Protoss player could be doing. But look at this. He does actually scout out that third Nexus. He's going to move in with a couple of Zergs. Not going to be able to break this little wall in over here. And of course, with this side also relatively secure, he does need to get something to complete that wall in over there, as could actually be at risk to a Zergling run by. But for the most part, HasuObs should be just fine for the time being, at least. And it's going to be up to Zenio to decide, am I going to take a very fast fourth base, or am I going to put on a lot of pressure? And it looks like with a lair being taken, roaches being produced, it looks like the answer is going to be pressure. He might actually try and hit with the +1 missile attacks, but I'm a little bit worried. Yes, there we go. He is actually just going to take a fourth. Going to get out a couple of roaches, maybe put on a little bit of pressure, but it's not going to be some kind of game-ending all-in pressure that we might see a Zerg decide to make in this situation. But I mean, with those +1 missile attacks, could just put on a little bit of pressure once those finished up, and even have a little bit of a macro hatchery going down over in his main base. I like that decision. It's something that most Zerg players will opt to do in this situation. And I mean, I say that's a nice decision, despite the fact that it's a very common, just because he is still going for that fourth expansion, so he will already have some of that additional larva. But I mean, I still like the ability to produce additional units immediately rather than just later on. So in the meanwhile, we see HasuObs going for that robotics facility tech. He's going to have about 4 gateways and a robotics facility. Going to get out that observer. Going to be able to scout around, not only just to see what these Zerglings are up to, but also to try and figure out what exactly Zenio's reaction has been. Like I said, Zenio could have gone for a huge 3-base pressure off of this little, scouting this early third expansion. So, I mean, HasuObs has to be careful. He's going to move out and just poke around with these sentries in the Zealot, and I really like how he's doing that poking. He's just making sure to catch a glimpse of the army, see how big it is and how much he has to respond, because, I mean, if he can afford to just not warp in additional units, he probably will try and go for that. But, ooh, what is this that we see out of HasuObs? Double robotics facility and a robotics bay going down, as well as a Twilight Council. Looks like HasuObs going to be going hard on the tech, as he is just going to be going straight for 2 Robo Colossus. Going to try and pump all those out and likely hit some kind of timing with 3 or 4 Colossus, and that's going to be really cool to see. Maybe even get some of that Blink Stalker out, or it could just actually be for +2 weapons, as he does actually need that Twilight Council to finish up for that to happen. But in the meanwhile, Zenio going to try and put on a little bit of pressure of his own, moving up with some of these Zerglings and Roaches. I don't know how much damage he's going to be able to do, especially against this wall. And looks like he's just poking. I'm not actually sure what he was trying to accomplish with that, as he should know he is not going to be able to break this wall in with that number of Zerglings, this few number of Roaches. But he does have to be careful not to get force fielded in, as that could actually be devastating in this series. So in the meanwhile, we see the 4th base starting to get up. Do we actually see an infestation pit? Yes, infestation pit is done. He does also have the potential to start that hive tech research, but has not opted to do so. Just getting out some of those infestors for now and getting out that spire. So we could actually see a hive start around the same time that spire finishes. We're going to have to wait and see. But in the meanwhile, we actually end up seeing Overseer trying to figure out what exactly HasuObs is up to, and I have to say, HasuObs is a little bit low on the gateway count. Oh, actually, never mind. He has a ton more gateways down over here at the 3rd. Nice little hiding location. That's actually going to be quite annoying for Zenio to try and predict where they are. So he should actually now... Oh, he actually catches a glimpse of it, as well as the robotics base. So that's actually going to be a big tell of exactly what HasuObs is up to. Just because Zenio should have known about this other robotics facility. So he must be wanting 2 robotics facility and a robotics bay. Oh my god, there are going to be so many Colossus out. He is definitely going to need to get some of the corruptors out. And it looks like that's exactly what he's doing. These are not just corruptors for Broodlords. As we can see, Hive Tech has not even been started. He's getting those out just because he knows he's going to have some kind of answer to the massive Colossus cannon. We actually see a War Prism going to be coming out. So this is actually going to be a push with 3 Colossus, a good number of gateway units with Blink Stalkers, and also a Warp Prism. So this could be a very strong little timing push that HasuObs could be doing. That, I mean, is not exactly super unorthodox in terms of the unit composition, but just the timing and the way he went about getting it is going to be a little bit unorthodox. So we're going to have to wait and see if Zenio is actually going to be prepared for this. He does have a couple of spine crawlers up across the map, so we're going to have to wait and see, is he going to try and defend at home, or will he just try and get a big surround off immediately as his army tries to move out? It looks like, I feel like it would actually be a much better idea to just go home and retreat at this point, as we do end up seeing HasuObs looking like he wants to move out. He does have the +2 weapons already finished up. A second War Prism is actually going to be produced, and I like that, as long as, oh my god, he's actually going to get Gravitic's Drive, so War Prism speed as well. He can do a lot of damage, a lot of multi-pronged aggression. We're going to have to wait and see, is Zenio going to be prepared for it? Will he have not just the army, but the APM to deal with this army? I mean, he has a ton of spine crawlers, and I have to say, spine crawlers for the most part will micro themselves, so they will be paying for themselves, but the question is, are they going to be in the right position? We have this spine crawler wall trying to delay this army. Some good fungal growth going down, at least doing a little bit of shield damage to those stalkers. The stalkers have to be a little bit careful, as once they get fungal growth, they cannot blink out. The corruptor is trying to dance, trying to find a good angle on those colossus, but here is the real danger over here. We see the War Prism moving into the third base, going to be dropping in 4 of those zealots, and we even see the rest of the army just moving around with this observer, trying to pick off some of those creep tumors. We have another War Prism trying to move in over here to the natural expansion, and we actually see the third expansion zealots do get cleaned up, but the War Prism remains alive. The army is going to be pushing into the spine crawlers. I love how well HasuObs is just pulling Zenio apart, and in the meanwhile, we have the War Prism going into the main base. He can actually snipe off some very important tech structures, such as the infestation pit, but no, it looks like he's not going to be going for that. Just going to continue try and go for some of those drones, and in the meanwhile, going to go ahead and try and take out these spine crawlers. But look at those fungal growths doing so much damage. Some of those sentries are so low in energy and health that they could actually just die on a single more fungal growth, but it looks like there are no more fungals for the most part left over. We see the corruptors sniping off all of the colossus. All the colossus have fallen, but now there is a good amount of food supply left over in those corruptors that can be absolutely useless. But look at this, 70 Zerglings are on the way, as well as the Greater Spire, as 7 additional infestors coming out, and I think that they're going to arrive in time. I'm not sure if HasuObs is going to be able to escape without sustaining a couple of losses. The Zealots are definitely going to be under fire, but where is that War Prism harass? We have that War Prism under, well, actually just being surrounded by those Zerglings, so he's not going to be able to really warp anything in over there. This War Prism actually could be utilized, but look at this, the Roaches also getting there in time. The remaining units for HasuObs are getting surrounded and picked off. I'm not sure if he has enough. The infestors are starting to regain some energy to fungal growth. They're going to fungal growth that small clump of units. Some a small blink stalker, a micro going down. That's going to allow HasuObs a slightly precious advantage, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be enough. A single zealot trying to take on the entire group of these infestors. Actually managed to snipe off an infestor. That is actually a big deal at this point, considering how low both of them are on the army. And even though it looks like Zenio has a big army, a lot of that is eaten up in infestors that don't have a lot of energy right now. So if HasuObs is able to immediately get up that large army, especially with 2 colossus going to be produced at a time, he could actually maybe still do some nice, good pressure before the Broodlords are able to pop. But oh my god, I take it back. The Broodlords are morphing somewhere. Where in the world are they? Here they are. We already have 6 Broodlords with a 7th one on the way popping out, and that is going to spell disaster for HasuObs, and HasuObs might actually be very much aware of it. He's going to try and do a little bit more pressure with these Warp Prisms, but I'm not sure how much damage he's actually going to be able to do. It looks like he was actually lost one of those Warp Prisms, and this Warp Prism should be able to pick up the Stalker and run away, and wow, really nice timing over there. And of course, with the Gravitic's Drive, that does mean that his Warp Prism is going to have a very nice speedy getaway. But the question is, are these Stalkers going to have the speedy getaway that they need to make sure they don't get surrounded by those Zerglings? It looks like the answer is going to be yes, but not because they are fast enough, but simply because it looks like Zenio does not want to engage with those Zerglings just quite yet. He wants to utilize those with that giant Broodlord Infestor army that is now making its way across the map, slowly but surely. And the question is, oh my god, is HasuObs going to be able to even try and defend this 4th expansion? I mean, he doesn't exactly have that Stargate tech finished up. He's actually just now going to be finishing up that Stargate tech, so he will be able to start a Fleet Beacon, eventually start getting up a Templar Archives, and also getting out some of those High Templar or Dark Templar to actually get out Colossus, or sorry, get out the Archons and start a preparing for that Archon toilet. But it's just so far off. I'm not sure if he has the time to do that. He has to secure this 4th for sure, as he is basically going to be mined out in his main very, very soon. Even on the gas count, he's running a little bit low. And I mean, look at this. We just take a look at the upgrades. Zenio doing relatively well in those upgrades, has +2 melee attacks, but in the meanwhile, we have HasuObs, you know, +3 weapons for pretty much all of his units that he has out on the map right now, so it's going to be very scary. And oh my god, the Zerglings, they could run in, but they're being blocked by a single zone and a nice force field. Really on point with all of that from HasuObs, but HasuObs actually going to be a little bit out of position to deal with this Broodlord and Infestor army moving in over to the location that he wants this fourth. He has to make or break the decision right now. Can he defend this fourth expansion? He has to let it finish if he's going to. Looks like he lets it finish, so he's going to say, you know what, I can defend this, but in the meanwhile, can he defend his main base? All these Zerglings is trying to push in, but it looks like they're going to be completely denied, even though a couple of them do try and make their way in. They're basically going to be just, well, I guess they managed to survive, but they're not actually being focused hard down on that center or anything. Don't think they could have done a whole lot of damage over there, but in the meanwhile, Zenio, it does actually not have as scary of an army as, you know, I mean, he previously did, especially with the loss of all of those Zerglings and such. Yes, he can replenish that supply with other things, but the question is this going to be enough Broodlords? Does he have enough Infestors out? I mean, you think of that, a big, scary late-game Broodlord Infestor army as being, I mean, completely untouchable. You think of massive numbers of Broodlords. You think of massive numbers of Infestors just lobbing out infested Terrans, throwing down fungal growths, locking down units. None can escape their wrath. And this, I mean, it's kind of getting there, but it's not exactly that army, especially when you start to think that Zenio is actually going to be maxed out. He still has a lot of supply eaten up in Zerglings and Roaches. So, I mean, we can only wait and see if it's going to be enough, as HasuObs is actually having a little bit of trouble defending this without that mothership out. The mothership is quite a bit away, and even though it will actually be popping out kind of soonish, it still has to make its way over here, and motherships travel rather slow. And oh my god, we actually have a big run by of Zerglings and Roaches into the main base. They're going to snipe the Dark Shrine. That means no Archons are going to be coming out. That means no Dark Templar to help out. We're getting some lucky harassment coming in, and it looks like the fourth base is going to be taken out as well. These Colossus need to get the heck out of there, as they need to stay alive. They're going to be so important to try and deal with some of these Broodlings and just damper the damage that Zenio's army is doing. And we see this little run by is still doing damage. They're even to be able to take out this warping reinforcement that were made to try and take out that army, and made to try and take out all of those Zerglings and Roaches, doing all that damage. And I mean, oh man, this is such a terrible position for HasuObs. He has to basically go for it right now. He's blinking in. He's going to see how many Broodlords he can snipe. One Broodlord gets sniped. The mothership is out. So he does have to be careful. I mean, Zenio has to be careful about that Vortex, but it looks like there is not even close to enough energy for a Vortex. He still needs 20 energy, and oh my god, so many of those Infestors are just getting taken out. Oh my god, Zenio has to be so careful. He does still maintain a massive Broodlord count, and he has done substantial damage, being able to take out the entire base in the main, as well as canceling that fourth. But look at this, a lot of those probes could actually end up going down to those Broodlords, as it also could reveal the fact that there is a base over there. But look at this, the Stalkers blinking and trying to snipe off those Broodlords once again, but will they be able to do enough damage? They're getting taken out so fast, and the only thing that's going to remain are those Colossus. And once only the Colossus are remaining, I mean, these Broodlords can just turn around and engage, but it looks like he's not going to opt to do that. He just feels a little bit too afraid of the potential for a big Stalker warp in. But look at this, there is a massive number of Zerglings going to be able to try and run in, but it looks like HasuObs has definitely learned from his past mistakes. He's going to go ahead and try and block with those Zealots, and unfortunately for Zenio, who's not paying attention, could have actually sniped off a ton of those pros in there, and that would have actually spelled doom and disaster for HasuObs. As we can see, his pro count is relatively low already, and I mean 54 probes, and oh my god, he saw the probes. He could get some amazing fungal growths off over there, but it doesn't look like he's going to opt to do it just quite yet. Wants to make sure that he doesn't get out of position or overcommit going up that ramp with his entire army. So he's just going to send the Broodlords over there, poke away at those probes, and he will eventually be able to kill off everything, and even gets the pylon. That means no reinforcement units over there, and that means it cancels on all of those units and those high Templar that were about to be warped in. We do see that a couple of Archons have been produced, and the mothership does have enough energy for not just one, but close to 1.5 vortexes. So if he can just stick around and get nice snipes off like that, he could actually still be in it. But oh my god, those units over in the main base of HasuObs are still doing so much damage that basically has reset so much of the tech. And I mean, I don't know if HasuObs can do anything about it. He gets a nice little vortex, but to what end? And there's going to be the GG coming out of HasuObs, as we see that vortex is going to pop out just to see No, we don't actually get to see how many units were in there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and rewind to see how many units actually landed up in there. Looks like not a whole lot. One infestor and another infestor's corpse just kind of dies upon the vortexes. I guess corpses don't go into vortexes, but... Well, that said, really well played by both these players, but it looks like Zenio, with that late game play, especially with all of those run bys, was able to secure the victory in game number 1. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully you guys decide to watch game number 2. This is a best of 5 series, so that does mean that whichever player is able to reach 3 wins will be able to advance on to the round of 8. I'm pretty excited to jump into game number 2, guys, so I will see you guys there.